bbnews.com/yoursay, and we'll help you solve your issues. So, the government has said transgender women can use some single-sex spaces intended for females. Sir Keir Starmer previously said it was very important to protect female-only spaces in a debate with Rishi Sunak during the general election campaign. Labour has now been accused of breaking that pledge after releasing a response on a consultation which confirmed that public and private bodies can write policies that allow transgender women into female-only places. I'm joined now by co-founder and executive director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Welcome! What a guest, our first in-studio guest. Maya, before we get into this topic, which is very important, of course, earlier this week, J.K. Rowling, she pointed out it's been 5 years since her infamous tweet, if we can just put it up now, and at the bottom you will notice there's a hashtag which says, "I stand with Maya." That's you. She was inspired by your fight. I'd mentioned at the beginning of this show how it's kind of on the backs of other people that we are here today. Can you believe what's happened in the last 5 years?
I couldn't have guessed it 5 years ago. She tweeted the day after I lost my employment tribunal. So a judge had said that the belief that sex is real was not worthy of respect in a democratic society. I'd lost. And then the next day, J.K. Rowling tweeted, and my case got spread all over the world, and it took 4 years altogether, and I won, and it means that people are protected against discrimination. And that day, J.K. Rowling tweeted, I had no idea whether she'd carry on. Would it be one tweet, or would she carry on? And she's carried on for 5 years. She stood by us, she stood up for us, and it's made it safer for people to talk about this, and the progress that's been made because of that, you know, the CAS review this year, the ban on puberty blockers, things that were dangerous to say are now being said in Parliament, they're being said in government, and they're making change. So I'll always be grateful for J.K. Rowling for stepping in that day.
I'll be grateful to you, and I don't know if the younger generation appreciate, but it was like 5 years ago, you couldn't say stuff. It was genuinely like, if I say there's two sexes, I could lose my job. It was crazy, and this woman is the person who changed all of that. So thank you. A big round of applause, please, from our audience, because none of it would have happened without you. So I just want to say thank you, because where we are now is, and it's not just here. It's, you know, now America's going in on this, and it's all changing everywhere. So thank you. Let's get back. Of course, as I said in the intro, the fight does not end, and it's continuing even into this week. What's happened?
I hope this is a bump in the road. So this was a consultation that was started by the previous government and then was picked up. The results of it were picked up by this government. The previous government had asked people to send in examples of bad guidance. So guidance to public bodies, guidance to gyms and pubs, and, you know, all kinds of businesses and public bodies that are providing everyday single-sex services or specific single-sex services like women's refuges. And people are concerned that the guidance is not clear. It says you can provide a single-sex service, but you can also allow in people of the opposite sex based on their gender identity. And it's just impossible. Either you let in men or you don't. And if you let in men to a woman's service, whatever their pronouns are, whatever they're wearing, then it's not single sex. And the government received about 400 responses. So people sent in guidance from their local council, from businesses and so on. And this week they said they thought only 10% of them were unlawful. So basically they thought that only if the guidance said the Equality Act mandates that you allow men who identify as women into women's spaces, that's unlawful. But if the guidance is just confusing or overcomplicated, well, that's OK, basically.
Yeah. So this is Labour trying to fudge it, basically, which is kind of what they've done all along. Now, I, admittedly, naively, thought at some point people seem to be getting it, and certainly Wes Streeting seems to understand these issues at stake here. But is there what can the government do? Or are they showing now their just unwillingness to sort this out?
I think there's a bit of sort of not invented here. You know, it wasn't their consultation, but now they are the government, and it's their job to fix this. And I think they've done a misstep here. They've lost women's trust after saying during the election that they understood what a single-sex service means and that they were going to protect single-sex services. They've now said, oh, we don't see a problem here. I think they're going to have to make a step on their own account to say, when they say they're protecting single-sex services, do they understand what that means? Does that mean single-sex or does it mean gender identity? Otherwise, we're going to end up in court. And we'll end up in court with individual businesses, with individual local authorities, or with the government. It's time for them to take leadership.
Yeah, well, it's very disappointing that we are still fighting this very seemingly simple battles. There's a few other things that have happened. One is any update with the Supreme Court? Definite. What is a woman? I don't know.
I know. None of us know until the new year. So this was heard at the end of November. The question about what is the definition of woman in the Equality Act, and we'll hear back sometime in the spring. It will be big either way. If they say that sex in the Equality Act means the ordinary meaning of sex, then all of these examples of bad guidance and bad policies will need to be reviewed. If, on the other hand, they come back and say sex in the law means a piece of paper that's secret, that doesn't relate to your anatomy, that you don't need to have had any surgery to get, then it really becomes impossible to operate a single-sex service. Either way, it's going to go back to the government to sort out the policies.
Stakes still incredibly high and all to fight for.
Yes,
Which you do with your organisation.
Yes,
I want to do a quick one for that so people can support it.
So, you know, one of the big things that, for me, from my point of view, happened over the last 5 years is after I lost, we set up Sex Matters organisation campaigning for clarity on sex in law and policy in the UK, and we've brought 100,000 people to sign a petition, had a debate in Westminster Hall in Parliament. We got this to be an issue during the election, and we're now challenging the British Transport Police. So we would like to sue them for their policy on searching, which is that, so the law protects people when they're being searched by the police. You have to be searched by a member of the same sex. But they say that means that a male police officer with a gender recognition certificate can strip search female detainees. We think that's a breach of human rights.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for continuing the fight, and have a lovely Christmas. And thank you for joining us in the studio. Maya Forstater, everybody.